Hello there. Welcome back to Around the Grid. We are ready to continue. It's been a couple of days without any content. I've been a tad busy. Winter is kind of coming in full force right now, so we have a little bit of work to do on that front. But hopefully, most of it should be done, so you'll see a little bit more reliable uploads, hopefully again. Payday will unfortunately have to wait until tomorrow. So with that said, let's just jump straight into it, and currently, it's looking good. Let's see if we can keep this trend going. So, our current situation is that we're leading. We're not leading by much, just 100 points here, going into Austria. And we do have a fairly interesting fight between Bottas and Alonso that we'll see how long gets kind of, going over the course of the season. They are very close to each other skill-wise, so it's not really that surprising to see. But I'm looking forward to, as I said, seeing how this develops over the season, and we'll be keeping an eye here on Haas and AlphaTauri, because one of them is most likely going to be the team that will be playing next season. So with that in mind, let's just set up the performance targets here for Austria. It's pretty much the same as we always do. Fastest lap, both cars into Q3, sorry. If we have a optional one, we do just both cars 10 or above for position. And that usually seems to work out pretty well. But yeah, we are ready to jump into this. I did say earlier, however, just want to take this up quick, that I would make a guide on development in 1.8. It's still on its way. I'm a little bit uncertain about some things, but basically it just seems that the main change is that everything seems to be working mostly as it did before. But because of the way that the expertise gain now is based on sliders, you can take advantage of this to get even stronger growth in the strongest stats through research, which is going to be more powerful than design. But the signs themselves aren't a bad option. So I'll be going over that hopefully sometime this week. I'm a little bit pressed for time to sit down and experiment. It takes actually quite a long time to do, unfortunately. So we will see when that actually gets finished. Been busy, as I said. But we'll jump into Austria here and see how we do. We immediately, during the Austrian, even a European can get that wrong apparently. Just, Aus. I immediately think about Australia. My apologies. But yeah, we've had a bit of an interesting situation here because Alonso qualified on pole while Bottas qualified down here in 7th. And we'll have a little bit of an interesting look here because this is a very interesting qualifying. And it's a shame that I failed to record it. And I realized afterwards. The reason why this qualifying was fairly interesting, I really wish there was a track condition thing here. So as you can see here, it started wet, then it became a little bit drier, and then it became wet again towards the end. And let's just put it like this. Bottas, unfortunately, did not have a good lap in the wet period here. You can see that in that final sector. This is his flying lap in that potentially quicker period. He loses a good 1.4 seconds compared to, everyone else. To be fair though, compared to this time, it wouldn't be, super good or anything. But if you see that he basically has almost 3 tenths, a tenth, basically 4 extra tenths here too. That 1.6 seconds plus basically could have been 2 seconds quicker than this time, which probably would have put him on pole. So it's a bit unfortunate. The qualifying fix is nice, but drivers can still make some errors, which puts them, out of contention. This was just a very slight running wide. It wasn't actually another driver. So it's interesting now. You can actually have mistakes happen during the, the best conditions that you can get. Then the condition gets worse again, and as a result, you just don't have a time that can really challenge those who set it under better conditions. So qualifying, that again, has been the first time that I've seen it. Again, it's a shame that I didn't record it, but it was a fairly interesting thing to look at, and it should make for a fairly interesting sprint day too then, to try and get Bottas back up to, a podium place. I guess we could say, luckily for us, the sprint itself is not going to be wet. It's actually going to be dry, although potentially could have been wet. We are going to have to put Bottas here just on medium tires, and we're going to probably have to use energy and DRS for the most part to make up these places. There's no real other option. The softs will die, and while the tires will be the same, we do need that extra little bit of durability to move him around as we see fit. Australia, I said Australia again. Austria is one of those places where potentially they could end up with, you know, a little bit more of a troublesome sprint because the softs really fall off. So we're going to go with the mediums here. We're going to push them for the first 2 laps or so. Then we might run them a little bit slower. We'll see if Alonso can get a gap to the rest of the field. But the goal here will, of course, be to move Bottas up as high as possible. And that's just going to be our strategy here. We'll see how high we can get Bottas before the race itself. But honestly, even if we don't move him up in the podium, it's still acceptable. We'll see how this goes. We're getting closer to the end of the sprint. Bottas has made his way up to 6th, but that is kind of where he stopped. Not really much we can do about that. Alonso just keeps on getting caught up in this DRS train and has been falling backwards as a result, not really being able to make up places after falling down, which is a tad unfortunate. But honestly, that is just how things go sometimes. But with just a couple of laps left here, if we had to try anything, it has to be now. So we need to get by Leclerc, and we need to catch up to Verstappen and Perez within basically this DRS zone. And if we can't, it's going to be looking pretty bad here for him. For Bottas here, it's looking pretty good. He should be able to get 6th, and we'll just have to try and make something up for this during the race itself. I did, however, make a mistake here. I should have started this attack a lap earlier, but I didn't expect Leclerc to actually pull off the overtake that he did, and that put us on a little bit on the back foot here. But yeah, Alonso just hasn't been feeling it really, I think is the best way to describe it, so to speak.
We need lift off.
Now, we do actually also have a fight here with Bottas, but I think Bottas is safe. And unfortunately, yeah, Alonso is going to end up 3rd. It is what it is. It happens. I could probably have managed it a bit better, but accidents do happen. We'll just have to deal with that. Bottas 6th, so the car isn't completely unbeatable. It has a couple of flaws, and particularly on this track, we saw them. They're not able to pull away from the DRS trains, and they end up getting overtaken, and then they can't really re-overtake. Huge factor of that is just the fact that we haven't focused on top speed, and also the fact that we haven't focused on, you know, following the car in front. So this track isn't one that really suits us much. There are a lot of corners, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's the 90, well, a little bit more than 90 angle here doesn't really suit us well, and gives our opponents quite a big advantage when it comes to dealing with us. Now, for the strategy here, we'll just have a quick look, and then we'll set something up here. Softs, mediums, and hards are all pretty balanced, so you can basically use whatever you wish. So we'll see what we actually end up with here. In terms of strategies here, we have a few to choose from. This is one of the base strategies. It's pretty quick, don't get me wrong. These are the ones that we've come up with. Basically, they are about the same, just a second between them. But generally, I think we are probably going to do something like this. We could, of course, also start on the hards here and go on to the mediums towards the end. That could be probably a better gamble. And if we do that, the strategy will probably look something like this. We'll go full attack on the hards. We'll go aggressive on probably that first medium stint. But we have a little bit more of hard to use here. So potentially something like this maybe. How would that do in comparison? It would be about a second quicker. But this is also viable. It is Austria though, so could also get safety cars. But for Bottas here, who is actually fairly high up considering 6th place, I think what we're going to do is put him onto that medium hard, medium strategy. And we're just going to do the same here for Alonso. And we'll be trying to make the most out of the early stints. And then we'll just run a more calmer final stint. And as I said, if the need is there, we'll just do an extra pit stop. So this is what we'll try. We'll see how this plays off for us. The start here has gone fairly well. Alonso's still in 3rd. Bottas has lost 1 place due to Stroll having softer tires. But honestly, I think we're still in a pretty good position, and we'll try and make the best out of this. So far, so good. Bottas is up into 5th here, hunting down Leclerc. Alonso has made his way past the Red Bulls, but is probably going to get re-overtaken as he's used all his energy to make it happen. We've also had a bit of a penalty for Ocon, just wheel banging, nothing too serious. So we'll see what we can do here. It's looking good. And as I say that, Ocon is in a bit more of trouble here. We have our first safety car. And as you can see, degradation I'm actually on the wrong one here. Degradation is kind of what we expected. But the question now becomes, do we pit under this safety car, take advantage? Because it is Austria. The time considerations here, although not too long. 22 seconds, it's still 22 seconds. I'm considering actually that we just take that pit stop. Rest of the cars will not be pitting, let's be honest. But we could pit onto the hards here a tad earlier, or we could just stretch these mediums. I'm very undecided on this one, honestly. Because no matter what we do, we are going to be coming out towards the back. There's no question about that. We'd be coming out probably behind Tsunoda here in 12th. No, actually Norris maybe. For Alonso. Huh. I will have a look at the strategies and see if we can figure out something that might work with pitting it right now under the safety car. So with the safety car currently on the track, we could try something interesting like this, and I'm quite tempted to do so with Alonso and just split the strategy with Bottas, mostly just to make things a little bit interesting. We'll see exactly where we come out here because I'm not sure we'll actually come out ahead of anyone really, and it is kind of risky to do this, but I can imagine that the AI might pit, so we'll actually do this for Alonso. Try a little bit of a cheeky one and pit very, very early. But it'll depend very, very much now on where does he come out. Will he be coming up high or will he be coming out low? We will see. Yeah, Hamilton locks up, I guess. Yeah, and takes that Ocon. Nothing really can be done with that. It does happen. But yeah, I am wondering if this might be a horrible idea or not. We'll see here if Verstappen opts to pit as well. If he does actually opt to pit. Which means that we can probably assume that everyone will be pitting. So we have a choice then. Do we want to gamble? I think we do. I think we put Bottas on the same strategy that we put Alonso. And we do the double stack here. We have just about enough time. Let's be honest here, Paris is going to have to wait probably in the pits. And that could benefit us greatly here. And they are double stacking. Everyone here is coming in. So the question now is, are we going to be able to pit and get out without too many problems there? So Alonso is safe. Bottas is getting held up in the pits here. Both of them, longer stop times here, but I don't think it was pit. Bottas actually did have a pit stop issue.
Bottas who's pitting. Oh, but something's not right. Oh dear.
Yes, the tires teleported off. But yeah, we did get held up a little bit. It is what it is, though. We're down into 7th now. Alonso up into 2nd, or rather retains 2nd. But that is a little bit unfortunate. And there is actually quite a lot of pit stop issues this time around. But yeah, this is kind of what we half expected, so to speak. We're going to be trying to do 2 stops, so it's going to be key here that we actually get Bottas up quickly up front. And of course that we get away with Alonso. So we'll do our best to make that happen, and we'll see where we're at once we get a little bit closer towards the end here. So this is a fairly interesting situation here, and what I mean by that is actually incredibly simple. We have done a few laps now. This is probably a 7th or 8th lap of the safety car. And as you can see from the degradation is actually pretty equal across the field here for everyone. So the AI is also still somewhat pushing. And that is kind of what we like to see. They have taken an aggressive approach here on this set of hard tires. Bottas is still trying to make his way back up. But Alonso has kind of fallen off from the Red Bulls, and that's understandable if the Red Bulls too are pushing. So looking forward to seeing how this is going to develop during this race. We've had another small incident here, this time between the 2 Red Bulls. And just minor wheel banging. I don't even think there's any damage there for either of them. So no real problem. None of them got a penalty either. So just a little bit of wheel banging. But we are chasing them down in 3rd and 4th. And degradation-wise now, they have let off a little bit of the gas. We're still the only team pushing at this stage, so it's going to be interesting to see if we can actually make something happen here now, because we need to get by them as quickly as possible. And we're going to give Bottas the job of getting that done for the time being, because he has energy. Well, we might need to just sit back a little bit now and recharge both of our drivers. So we'll see what we can do here. It won't be too long until we pit again. And we might pull these, or rather take these tires a little bit longer to get bigger gaps to the back of the field. We're probably going to start pitting on this lap with Bottas, and then we will be doing Alonso the lap after. They basically both be going 3 to 4 laps longer than expected. That should make it a little bit easier here now. We might come out ahead of Hamilton, but even that is going to be a little bit, you know, problematic if we have an error again. And we'll have to see here, depending on how much time was expected to be lost. We might actually sneak ahead of... No. Just a little bit too slow to make that happen, unfortunately. But if we had gone ahead of Norris and Show, that would have made our lives a lot easier. Let's see now what we can do with Alonso. And for Bottas here now, we're just going to tell him to deploy and try and get past these two cars as quickly as possible. And Alonso here will actually be able to sneak out in front, but will get overtaken due to not being kind of up to speed there. But both cars now are getting by the McLaren, and they should have now an easier time to just make their way back up the order. And we'll see what we do here in terms of Verstappen and the Ferraris, if they pit twice or if they pit once. And hopefully we can make something happen here. We're seeing Verstappen now pit. He is coming out in 8th behind Russell. So he isn't far behind us, and that is concerning. Particularly if you consider the fact that we were behind him when we pitted. So we really haven't actually gained anything by pitting early, which is a problem. Well, for several reasons. But we'll just have to try and make the best out of it. We're still planning to pit again. Verstappen is going into medium. He'll be going in these tires till the end. And it's going to be a better thing for us with the Ferraris. But the other cars that are not going to be... you know, as good to deal with. It's going to be a little bit difficult to kind of describe. Incident with Piastri and I assume Gasly. A little bit of wheel banging. Although that was a lot of carbon flying. I don't think it's a big deal. But yeah, I might have just chosen the wrong strategy here. We're getting held up by things like this. The Ferrari's doing the double blocker, if you will. So hopefully we can make something happen still. But right now it is getting more and more doubtful, if you will. Although Alonso gets that first move done, he's still kind of in the risk here. Gets that second move done, he's now free to roam. And we should see the Ferraris pit fairly soon, but Bottas now should also be somewhat safe. And we'll just try and push everything that we have on this stint before we go to the final one. But getting victory here is going to be really, really difficult. We've just done our final pit stop here. And as you can see, we are currently running 3rd and 4th. Bottas just had fastest lap, which is a little bit better than the last one there. But we are chasing down Verstappen. We are chasing down, you see the guys here, basically, with about 2 seconds a lap. So it is still possible that we might be able to get both of them. And we'll have to see, though. The tires are degrading fairly quickly here. And if they keep this up, we might not have enough towards the end of the race to actually, you know, set up a bit of a charge. But it's quite possible that we get both cars on the podium and Verstappen wins. We'll try and prevent that, though. We have a virtual safety car. Rick has crashed out, and that probably puts a damper in the hopes of hunting down Verstappen at least.
There, that's the moment of impact.
Shame. It is what it is, though. And as I said, this probably puts a damper on hunting down Verstappen, but Perez should still be within reach. Final lap of the race. We are a couple of seconds behind Verstappen. We probably could have actually gotten him if it weren't for the fact that we did have that virtual safety car. But both cars are kind of safely away here. Alonso could actually, as you can see, could have probably launched an attack. He's getting closer and closer, but that's just how it is. Sometimes. 1st and 4th for Red Bull, 2nd and 3rd for us, then the 2 Ferraris, then the 2 Astons, then the 2 Mercs. So still pretty good race weekend, but honestly it is a bit unfortunate that it ended as it did here. And we have actually probably going to be adding a lot of this to the video. So hopefully the other races today aren't as, you know, exciting, so to speak, as much happening. And hopefully they're more of a formality. But as you can see, our car isn't unbeatable. And Verstappen in particular can still pose a pretty significant challenge to us. With the results here, Alonso once again takes the lead. Bottas falls down to 2nd. But the biggest winner here is Verstappen. He gains a decent chunk on both of our boys. But honestly, it's still advantage us, I dare say. And I am a little bit interested here. So on that first pit stop on the safety car, unfortunately, both our cars had pit stop errors, which definitely hampered Bottas massively as he came out in 7th. And even here, Alonso had a very, very minor, you know, pit stop error. But if we had been, you know, able to avoid any of those, we'd be, you know, probably able to fight a little bit more better. Could potentially gotten the win there. So it is what it is, though. We'll just have to deal with that. We have Silverstone up next in a few days, just 4 days for that matter. We also have a new ATR period. We're going to have to kind of decide where we want to put that. All the cars pass inspection, and we don't actually have anything. Well, we actually have side pods incoming in just 2 days. And are these actually good side pods? I believe these are the ones that we put the last period into. And that is a massive improvement on the engine cooling there, which is kind of what we wanted. And it is also a massive improvement on a lot of other stats. Now, the question is, I think in order to not, you know, hamper myself too harshly here, we might want to put a little bit more, you know, research into, or rather design rather than ATR. But honestly, designing a strong car for Alpha isn't really a big problem. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade the suspension a little bit. As you can see, give some pretty decent boosts here. Want to get a bit of... Again, we're just going to focus on what I would normally do. Because again, we're going to be handing this car over come next year. And giving our opponents a good car would be quite an interesting one. But I do believe that we actually said we wanted to do things balanced. Because, again, been a busy last couple of days. I'm not completely up to code yet. But as you can see here, the research here, we're going to keep it balanced. We're just going to do it like this. Get everything, you know, above the threshold. And I think that's fine. Although I probably decided in the last episode we'll use the ATR period somewhere else. Maybe even the underfloor. Should probably have a look at what we actually already done before I make such a decision. So we'll have a quick look at, have we done anything? A little bit for the chassis, nothing for front wing, nothing for the rear. Side pods, the underfloor. We've done a little bit for the underfloor. Suspension, nothing yet. So I do value the suspension quite a lot in this game. Because of the brake cooling, but also low speed cornering it gives us. So you know what, we're going to put the safety period into the suspension. That way we can just, you know, forget about it. We don't need to do any more research on this for the remainder of the year. And it should treat Alpha rather well going into the next season. So we'll do this. It is perfectly acceptable. 40 days, let's get that going. And yeah, I think the Cypress here were the last piece we wanted to make. Because I do want to make a kind of a stronger team to fight next time around. Perron's contract is ending. I believe I have to either replace him or get a new one before I can leave the team. I'm a little bit uncertain on that one. But we'll deal with that once we come closer to the end of the season. With that said, we will get everything set up here. And we will just jump straight into the British GP. Let's see how it goes. British GP has gone pretty well so far. As you can see, we're running out front with both Alonso and Bottas, Russell in 3rd. But we have had an incident here, which I assume is between the Red Bulls. We'll have a look at that.
Now here we are at the final corner.
Well, that is Verstappen and a Mercedes.
Oh, that's obviously far from intentional, but there was contact.
Okay, that was dangerous. Just a slight touch when he stops. That ain't good. But it does put him kind of out of contention here, and that is kind of good for our, chances this year. But we are going to go with an incredibly aggressive strategy here of 3 stops. I think it's just a better option for us. We could, of course, extend the medium and the soft stint and do a 2-stopper, but it's just about around the same actually in terms of time, so we're not going to bother doing that. But as you can see, we're getting very close to having a pit stop already gained by the time we're getting close to our first pit stop. And both Hamilton and Sainz are going to be pitting alongside us. So it's looking very, very good so far.
So the Alfa Romeo
We had an incredibly slow stop here for Bottas.
The front right doesn't want to come off.
Classic Bottas problem that, to be fair. But it did end up with him getting a pit stop that was 8 seconds long. And as you can see here, 8 seconds, he would have been pretty much clear of Perez if he didn't have that error. Let's see now if, Alonso can get safely through the pit stops. But we'll have to do some work here to get Bottas back up, but he's already kind of doing that on his own here, so not really much for us to do. He should just be flying through. And Alonso too had a bit of a pit stop issue here, so we definitely need to take a look at the pit crew after this, because we now had 5 errors in 8 stops. So that is worrisome. We'll have to take a look at the training schedule. But Alonso again would also have been clear, but this isn't a big problem. Everyone is going to have to pit fairly soon, so we should be able to just sneak through when that happens anyways. Here we are. We're getting very close to the end of the race. As you can see, both Bottas and Alonso are way clear of Sainz here, and there are, you know, worse tires on all of them. So we've been kind of running away with this one, honestly. There's been also a bunch of incidents with the lower ranked teams here, but nothing major, nothing that caused anything to do with us, safety cars or the like. And yeah, been a pretty good race for our team. Nothing really can complain about. So 1-2 for us. We'll have to see how it goes with these 3. They're still fighting. But Sainz currently holds a little bit of an advantage. We have Russell in the middle between the 2 Ferraris. Wonder if any of them can actually cause a little bit of mayhem here. Leclerc can. Puts Russell down to 5th. Ferrari 3rd and 4th. Russell. Then we have the 2 Red Bulls here coming in at a little bit of a gap between them. Hamilton, Stroll, and then Show. So pretty decent showing here. We get a huge gain on Verstappen, which is what we like to see. And I believe Bottas again is going to take the lead in the championship, facing this race here. As you can see here, Alonso got fastest lap, 6 points, which means that once again, there's just 3 points separating these 2. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this actually plays out towards the end of the season. Also, Bottas does have a DNF. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to have a look at this and how it actually develops. Now, interestingly enough, after those 2 pit stop errors, the remaining 4 pit stops were clean, which is good. So basically what we end up with then is that we had 5 errors in 12 pit stops, which isn't good odds, but more understandable. We'll probably see if the next race too, if we have any errors. But I would assume that the crew here probably are a bit tired, and we can actually check that. Under the sporting director, the pit crew is exhausted at 82%. So that would kind of explain why we are having the issues that we are having. Let's put it like that. Multi-car development report, we're still looking good there. Driver development update, point of cornering for Bottas. Board has high confidence still. Car part inspection. This is gonna hurt. As you see, only 3 out of 12 parts passed the inspection after this. So we're gonna have a bit of a work cut out for us here in terms of just replacing all of these parts for starters. And also, of course, making new ones. We should have more than enough parts in stock, however. The problem is that we won't have any spares. So we have 11 days for the Hungarian GP. What we are going to manufacture is at least a chassis. We don't have the best factory. I should probably upgrade that for the AI, to be fair. We have enough rear wings, front wings, I think, that we don't really need to worry about that. We are making these new side pods, so we can't actually do any side pod project, even if we wanted to. We're just going to manufacture a underfloor. And we're going to manufacture a couple of suspensions. I think that is going to be it for what we will be doing in terms of manufacturing. But that should be alright. Once this underfloor is done, we can, you know, make those front wings, make those rear wings, and we should have that done before the race. Now, in terms of pit crew training schedule here, we're just going to put them to custom. Because currently what they need is a bunch of rest. We also want to get the error chance down. I'm not too miffed about how long the pit stop takes. That's not actually a problem. And we'll just do it like this. And because after Belgium we'll have a bit of a longer break, we'll go ahead and put in some drills. So I'll just finish off this calendar and we'll see where we actually end up. So this is what I opted for. We lose some chance of mistake, but we don't actually know how much because, well, we only have these numbers to help us. But yeah, we're definitely struggling with our pit crew. There's no other way around it. The pit stop time is just going to have to get a little bit longer. That's fine. But we'll definitely want to try and make something, you know, happen with the issue there. But I assume that a lot of the, you know, the weirdness we're seeing with the pit stop crew now is probably due to the save being started before the latest changes. So if that is a problem, I'm going to be fairly unhappy, but hopefully it gets fixed in the near future. School simulation we will attend, basically new gen staff for the most part. We do want to have that happen. We're planning to play for a while. And the chassis research here. We've done one. I think we need one more to make up for all the errors. So we'll just put in another chassis research here right away. And again, we're keeping things balanced because the punishment, or rather the hit that we took in terms of research, is 5% on everything. So we do need to make up for everything, and once we've done that, we can start specializing parts for whoever takes over this team next year, which should give us a little bit more of a challenge. So for now, we'll just do it very simply and keep on designing balanced, rather than designing, researching things in a balanced manner. We did want to make at least a rear wing for this race weekend, and then we'll probably go ahead and make 2 front wings. So we have some sport and regulation changes here. More wind tunnel and safety time to the top 10 and less for the bottom 10. Yeah, I'm going to have to vote against this. It's going to make my life a lot harder if this goes through. So we're definitely voting against that. We'll just have to pray here that it doesn't go through. 1 chassis made. We want to make 1 more to make sure that we have 4 of them. And we have that rear wing. What we want to do instead is actually go ahead and make a couple of front wings then. And that should actually be us more or less caught up on parts once we get those side pods made. And we can actually have a look at the car right now before we go into Hungary, because I believe those side pods have been made, and they have. And we'll just put them on the car. So as you can see here, this is a fairly sizable upgrade. 0.1 kph, a little bit of acceleration. Some good balance here, but the main component here is a plus 14.45% to the engine cooling from this part alone. So that is actually massive. We have a look at the car analysis right now. You can see that we are actually second now in low speed cornering, first in DRS effectiveness. We're still the slowest top speed car on the track, but we may go for that with our cornering ability. And as I said, the top speed and the dirty air is our main weakness. So if we get pushed in a situation where we kind of have to follow the car in front, we're not necessarily going to have a good time. But yeah, the engine cooling now is brought up to 70%. We're still lacking a little bit on the brake cooling department. So yeah, definitely have a little bit of work cut out for us here. But as you can see, the Red Bull, we're basically the same here on the low speed. They're just 0.03 Gs behind on the medium, and basically around the same on the high speed. But look at that dirty air tolerance. They have an easy time following us. Same here with the brake cooling. The top speed is 2 kph higher than ours. So they do arguably have the better car. And just shaving off this extra weight here, those 10 kilograms, would be massive in terms of them getting more performance. So yeah, it is a tad worrying. Let's just put it like that. For now though, we'll jump into the next race and see how we perform in Hungary. We already have kind of an interesting situation here in Hungary. As you can see, we're currently in Q2, but we can see Verstappen is down in 14th, and we have Tsunoda up in 7th here. And with the rain, he is not going to be able to get out of the bottom, well, 14 in this case. That's going to make the race weekend a lot easier, because he is basically our biggest threat. There's just no way around that. That's who Verstappen is in this game. He's the boogeyman. And that should make our life a lot easier. But we'll have to get through Q1 here safely, and then we'll see where we actually are at. We did unfortunately not manage to actually clean quali here, and you can actually see why. Bottas ended up second. Alonso had a bad, really bad lap down in 5th, and the weather is not going to allow for any more tries, more or less. So we're just going to have to live with this. It's perfectly acceptable. And Paris might actually be a bit more of a roadblock or obstacle problem child than we originally thought he would be on this race. But we'll do our best and see if we can make something out of this. We've had our first round of pit stops here, and as you can see, Leclerc Sainz are the only one who's actually stayed out, along with Ocon, Perez. So we're actually looking really good here. Unfortunately, Alonso has been kind of held up in the DRS train. Took him a little bit longer to get up ahead, so he is a good 15-14 seconds behind. You know, Bottas, it is what it is, though, can't really do anything about that. And the strategy that we're going to employ is medium, hard, hard, medium. A very aggressive strategy that is going to work fairly well here because of the high degradation. So we'll have to see it. I don't think Alonso's going to be able to catch up to Bottas, but I think he should have no problems getting second, unless we have an incident that causes some mayhem. We have a virtual safety car here that does, you know, toss some rocks into our plans. Russell has crashed out. And I clicked that too quickly. That's my bad. But he is completely out here. And the question now becomes, do we pit under this virtual safety car? I think the answer to that is going to be a no. The time consideration is that we save 5 seconds by pitting under virtual safety car. But the strategy that we have just doesn't allow for it. Now, Leclerc is probably going to pit. I can imagine the Sainz is going to pit. And they'll save a little bit of time doing this, but then again, we will be perfectly fine even if they do this. It's actually more beneficial to us if Leclerc pits because he just gets out of the way. And Alonso then now has free reign to start chasing down Bottas, although again, that is kind of, you know, not really expected. But this does make life a little bit easy for us, so we'll take it. Alright, we're going to have a bit of an interesting end to this race. Luckily, I managed to pause things in time here. But as you can see, we now have a safety car incoming. I don't know exactly who has crashed, so we might as well figure that out. I would assume it is towards the back of the grid, and it seems to be the case. It looks like De Vries and Rick maybe has had a little bit of an incident, or, you know, De Vries just crashed on his own. But what this means is that we're going to be pitting for soft tires. It is very few laps remaining. Because of that early VSC, we've been able to stretch these tires fairly far. And we'll be going for soft tires towards the end here. I think that is going to be the play. And it looks very much like De Vries has crashed on his own. We did actually get Bottas into the pits there in time. So that is beautiful. Yeah, De Vries loses control in that corner, smacks the rear into the wall. Nothing much we can do about that. Now, in terms of pit stops today, they've actually been fairly good. We haven't actually had any issues with them, so it's looking very, very good now. We're gonna allow Bottas and Alonso to just, you know, move up behind. Verstappen has made his way up into 7th place here. Unfortunately for him, he has some fairly fresh tires. He likes to stay out though, so he jumps one during the pit stops here. But yeah. Verstappen, Ocon, it's going to be a really interesting restart for a lot of drivers here. But this does give us a brilliant chance to set the fastest lap, which shouldn't be an issue. We've also reached peak rubber, peak grip. Peak is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we'll be pushing very aggressively here, basically towards the end of the race with both of our drivers because, well, we don't want to get stuck. Lap cars may now overtake, which means that I believe we'll have the safety car in at the end of the next lap. And that should give us a couple of racing laps there towards the end, which will be greatly appreciated. 7 laps to go. Let's see now on the restart if Alonso and Bottas can get away safely. But this does actually kind of play into Alonso's hands there. He was about 12, 13, 14 seconds, been hovering around that, not really making any headway. So this could give Alonso a chance now to snatch that victory that we expect him to have taken here from his hands. Decent restart though, although Leclerc here is really, really on it, kind of following us, but it looks like we have safely gotten away now. He's forced down to over half a second behind, and I'd say that is a acceptable restart for our boys here. We'll speed along to the end, and we will basically kind of allow them to fight between themselves. I'll not be doing anything. We'll keep them at low aggression, low defend risk, and we'll tune both of them down to neutral. We'll allow them to kind of fight it towards the end here, and we'll see who stands as, you know, king of the hill at the end. I do want them to deploy for a couple more laps though, because I'd really like to try and snatch that fastest lap. So let's see if we can actually pull that off. I'm a bit surprised that we haven't actually done that already, to be fair. But it is what it is. If we can't pull that off, we can't. So we'll just have to take it here, unfortunately. We are currently on the final lap. Bottas got the overtake done on the main straight. He is currently leading. But we'll have to see if Bottas can actually make a bit of a comeback before we reach the end of this this lap. Judging by the distance, though, I'd say that is highly unlikely. And that is just a tad unfortunate. But I believe that maintains the gap at 3 points still. They just switch around again, which is kind of hilarious to me, honestly. But yeah, unfortunately, that safety car kind of just nabbed the win there out of Bottas's hands. And that happens. It's unfortunate, but it happens. Perez ends up third. Verstappen makes it up to 7th after starting, well, last, basically. And we have Leclerc and Sainz 4th and 6th. Then we have Hamilton 5th. Show doing very well, still in that Aston Martin in 8th. Then we have Gasly and Tsunoda scoring points for the Williams. So, yeah, bit of an interesting one for sure. Driver Championship then, actually, Alonso now has 4 points on Bottas. Fastest lap point wasn't in the calculation this time. So we step away from 3 points, go up to 4 points. Constructors, we are extending our lead. I'd say we are pretty safe there. We have the 2 quickest pit stops here. The others are a little bit further behind. And we didn't have any pit stop errors this time around, so the rest that we gave them last month definitely has helped. For sure. Manufactured the suspension. I believe that is nice. We should be caught up then, although some parts have probably failed here. Now this is the big one, the regulation vote for the sporting changes. Are they going through? I see a lot of red. Just 3 going through here. Ferrari, Red Bull, Williams. I have no clue why Williams voted for this, but I'm very happy that this did not go through. It's gonna make life a lot easier for us if we can stick to these rules for next season. Car part inspection, we have a failed underfloor. Not really that surprising. I believe that was one of the only parts that didn't fail last time around. So that is not a big surprise. Now in 3 days we're going to have the Belgian GP and Sprint. That's going to be an interesting one. Front wings have been made. We also have a rear wing research here, and once again we're just going to do what we have been doing, and that is do another one right away. I think this is the first research we've done on the rear wing, so we'll just do another one balanced. Then we'll have a look at things towards the end of the season here, because again, we just want to cover off what we're currently getting lost. It's 5% across everything. As long as we get that done, we should be happy. The Science Center, we have a bit of a problem here. Manufacturing needs to be shut down for 10 days by the looks of things. Yep. That could be bad if we have a lot of damage, but let's face it, it's Belgium and then summer break. That area couldn't actually come at a better time. Chassis has been manufactured, so we should be up to parts anyways. I'm a little bit confused then on what's going on. Qualifying position streak. Both drivers in top 10 for 5 races. I think that should be simple, honestly. Fastest lap, we'll go for that one. Q2, and again, just both drivers top 10. Pretty simple and straightforward here. We'll basically be leaving Alfa Romeo with a huge sum of money next season, so we'll see how the AI actually handles the situation that we're putting them in. Let's head to Belgium and see how we perform.
Yep.
Not the best qualifying for the sprint here, unfortunately, but we'll live with it. We're starting 4th and 6th, but that should be perfectly fine, honestly. The main problem here is that potentially we're getting rain, but we'll deal with that once we get there. The other problem that we have is that ERSs are running low for both cars. For Alonso, not a big deal. For Bottas, a bit more of a big deal because he doesn't have an extra one. So he'll probably have to take a penalty within the next few races. We might actually take it here at Belgium. We'll see once we get ready for the race weekend itself, once we're done with the sprint. So the sprint itself is actually going to be rainy and have a little bit of a potential of getting almost into the wet area. But it's going to be fairly high water level for the entire sprint, meaning that we can go full attack on inters for the entirety of the stint. That's going to be the play here. So we suck at following, which is going to make this a lot harder, but this does mean that we will be able to just go full attack and try and make good places during the sprint. We'll do our best and see if we can climb up to a bit of a better starting point for the race on Sunday. We've immediately had a bit of an interesting situation here with Verstappen crashing out fairly early. The wall ate him. And that should be him more or less completely out, I would think. But it seems like he's actually still going. I would expect some suspension damage, some front wing damage. We'll see here if he actually ends up pitting. Both Bottas and Alonso made up a place on on the starting line. But as you can see here, the heat now is getting kind of worrisome. So we might need to just tune both of them down to aggressive for a few laps, allow them to cool off those tires a little bit. And then we will try and make some moves when we have the opportunity. But for now, it's fine to just slow things down a little bit. It is rainy, it is hard to overtake, and we do have some gaps that we can play with. Verstappen pitting here too puts us in a very great position once again for the championship. But we'll try and make, as I said, our way a little bit further upwards, and we'll see if there's anything more of interest that happens during this little sprint. We have a virtual safety car that might last for a while. We have both Alonso and Bottas up here into second and third. And it is Piastri that has been involved with... I don't even know. They locked up and crashed. Okay, so Piastri locked up first, and then the AlphaTauri locked up and crashed into him. That's a new one, and that also explains the camera angle, because I don't think the game was made for that sort of camera angle. But both of them are out. That helps Verstappen on come Sunday. But we are pretty far into this. There's 5 laps to go. But we will do our best if we get Alonso and also Bottas past Sainz. But currently, looking very, very good. Alonso's been trying as hard as he could, but unfortunately here our car is just not made for following, particularly not in wet weather. But the improvement to second and third on the sprint is definitely acceptable from our perspective. Race has been pretty simple so far, but we have our safety car here. Hamilton versus Perez, and I would assume... yeah, that is Hamilton straight up out. We also had a bit of an incident with Leclerc. He crashed, needed to pit. He's now at the back of the grid. Verstappen has made his way up to 9th, so definitely interesting one. Tsunoda running 5th, looking to be a fairly interesting race here. But we now have to make a decision in terms of what we do strategy-wise. And I think what we're going to do here is put both of our cars here on hard tires. And that way we can actually, choose afterwards what we want to do. Because I think all the soft runners are going to pit. Hard tires aren't necessarily a great idea here because of the compound performance. Mediums will still be better for around 20 laps. Softs will be better for 12 laps or so. But I think going on hard here is basically the only real option that we have in front of us here. If we want to make something a little bit different. What we could do, if we really want to, is go onto a new set of mediums and then go onto a soft tire towards the end on maybe aggressive. That could be doable. But I think what we're going to do here is just go onto those hard tires and then go onto, say, a soft tires toward the end on full attack. And I think that is probably the better option here that we have available to us. Now, our cars are running inside each other, but we do have a fairly sizable gap to Perez to the point where that shouldn't actually, have an effect on us. So I'm thinking we do this. The other option that we have is actually quite an interesting one as well. It's going onto a soft tire immediately, push that as hard as we can, and then go into either medium or hard, depending on where we are on the track. But I think we're just going to do it a little bit more passively here. We are going to be pitting. Sainz pits as well, so it's probably for the best that we do pit like this. Perez opts to not pit, surprisingly enough, but he's on 75% medium, so that is kind of understandable. But yeah, we'll see what everyone pits onto here. I see a lot of hards. Tsunoda down to 8th, unfortunately, after the pit stop kerfuffles. And yeah, looks like we'll have a bit of an interesting restart here. With Perez opting to stay out, but Sainz onto new mediums. So looking forward to seeing how this restart goes. We'll probably go into softs towards the end. Say lap 34, 30 or so. And that should hopefully give us the advantage we need. So we have a bit of an interesting situation here, and what I'm talking about is Verstappen. He's made it back up. He's 16 seconds behind us. And as you see, he has now pitted onto soft tires. He's basically been running. Kind of made his way back up there with the pit stops and everything. It's actually kind of impressive how quickly he made that happen. But what I'm thinking now is that we will too go ahead, and that was the wrong buttons. Pit for soft tires is just the best option. And we are going to have to just answer immediately and get basically both cars in if we can. If not, we'll just have to do them one at a time. Because if we don't, we are going to end up in trouble. So we're going to get Alonso in first here because he is ahead. And the gap between our cars here is actually so low that we're going to have to force Bottas here to wait a lap. And it's just going to have to be how we play this. We are running with Sainz at the moment. We haven't been able to get rid of him. So he is kind of also slowing us down. But I think Alonso should maybe be able to beat Verstappen out. He did. But Verstappen will be getting him on the straight for sure. And that is exactly what happened here. So we need to just catch up to Verstappen and get by him as quickly as we can. Sainz opts to pit as well. And as you can see, both cars are out behind Verstappen. He's back in the lead. So very, very weird races so far.
Now we're watching Max Verstappen.
So unfortunately here, Verstappen had a bit of an incident again. Locks up. And that does unfortunately put him down to 4th. But it does help us. So we'll see now if Alonso can pull away. But again, this is one of those tracks where we are kind of weak. Top speed tracks. Particularly also if you consider the fact that Red Bull has kind of similar cornering to us right now. So we'll try and get away from Sainz. If we can't, we'll have to just do a showdown towards the end. We're currently on the final lap here. Alonso, Bottas running together. Got kind of away from Sainz. Once again, we're not really touching anything because they're away from Sainz, although Sainz has been gaining. So we'll see here. Looks like Alonso is going to pull the longest straw on this one. Last few corners now. And with no incident, Alonso wins. Bottas second. Then we have Sainz, Verstappen with a massive, recovery drive here. Then we have Show, provided, of course, that we don't have any incidents. Russell, Gasly, Tsunoda. Tsunoda is hunted by Perez, though. That could be fairly interesting. And he is also an older Haas, I believe. So, while Perez tyres aren't great either, they might still be somewhat quicker. But yeah, Tsunoda there secures an 8th place for Williams. That's huge for them. But yeah, nothing too surprising here within the top 10, honestly, with the exception of that Williams car. I'm also very surprised that Tsunoda's one scoring points rather than Albon, to be completely honest. But yeah, 1-2, kind of what we expected. Pretty uneventful, but we did have a safety car and a few other things that made it a little bit interesting. But now Alonso is kind of pulling ahead, 12 points ahead of Bottas, and constructors again, not really a problem. No issues with the pit stops. We can be very, very happy with how it went this weekend. Alright, we've hit the mid-season board review. Our performance is acceptable. Target is 6, we're leading. We have a podium in every single one of the races so far. So we get 1.5 million in extra money, which is nothing really. Front wing and rear wing failure on car 1. We can, of course, fix that. We just replace them and build new parts. Can we do that? We can. I was worried that it was going to be, an emergency manufacture and cost us 3 trillion, but luckily that is not the case. So the powertrain here is an issue, mainly the ERS. Next race we are probably going to have to switch it out. It's going to be Sandvort, and it should be alright to actually just switch around there, honestly. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. And the main thing that we'll be looking into now over the summer break is, of course, the research. But honestly, not too much going on. We're just catching up on parts, and we should be pretty much caught up at this stage. So that is good. And the design identifier has now been solved, so we can start doing new projects again. The monthly car development was still first, but I would assume again that Red Bull is catching up pretty rapidly. The ability point here for Bottas, just a control point for Pocher, unfortunately. Kind of didn't really use him last month. And we'll have a look here and see where we're actually at right now. Currently we are weary. It says we're in the 72 margin, and that is understandable because we did kind of put in a lot of work towards the end of last month. We have been working fully, so that is actually completely understandable. I'll set up a calendar here and then we'll move on. Going with a fairly basic calendar here, we're just doing balanced like this. It should bring keep us kind of in risk. We're kind of in the risky zone, but we should still be safe for these pit stops, and that's kind of what we're going for. We'll be okay with that, and that should be, as I said, a-okay. Now Netherlands is approaching rapidly here. We should have at least one research project done before that, and it's coming up right now. And we also have a sponsors VIP experience here. So we're going to approve this because we get more payout and we don't really fail sponsor objectives anymore. Basically, this event gives you 3 times the payout for successful sponsor guarantees. but you also have to pay a double penalty if you fail. So basically, if you do well, it's not a problem. If you fail, you might want to be a little bit more concerned. Now the chassis here, this is not the updated numbers. It doesn't have the final set, but we have actually caught up on the chassis. We should do probably the underfloor side pods, one of them right now. And we'll do whatever we haven't actually started on. So the chassis is more or less done now in terms of research. We'll just jump down to the side pods. And honestly, I probably should do the chassis, sorry, the underfloor first, but we'll just do that with a CFD period instead. And that should be done with just one research, kind of like we're doing with the suspension here. So there we are. We can actually get started on that underfloor research right now, because the suspension research that we did is pretty massive. 7%, 6%, 6%, well, 7 actually across the board. So the underfloor, the suspension is definitely going to be a huge improvement next year. We're going to put just a regular balanced research session into the underfloor, because again, everything is hit by 5%. So as long as we do balanced research, the AI should have no problem next year, kind of hopefully dominating, honestly. It would be funny to see if the AI dominates a car that you have made for them. But now that we'll be getting into Sandboard, and as I said here, we'll probably take that penalty for Bottas, which is going to make our life very interesting. But hopefully, it should still be pretty straightforward. Let's jump into the Dutch Grand Prix. Just done with Sandboard here. As you can see, Bottas first, Alonso third. Nothing really happened during this race. It was pretty boring and straightforward. But unfortunately, Verstappen was kind of untouchable. We just couldn't get up to him. And as a result here, we couldn't really get into a good position. And it happens. It is how it goes sometimes. Now, it has to be said that this race and everything going from here and forwards is going to be made with on the 1.9 patch. So the 1.9 patch has landed. It brings some changes to, in particular, you can now choose your difficulty for races and for car development. We're going to keep both of those on standard for now, but we might change those in the future if we feel like, say, we can do back-to-back world championships with a fresh team. So for now, we're going to keep this on standard. I currently have a poll on my channel where we are going to be doing a hard playthrough with either Haas or Williams. Go have a look at that. Feel free to vote if you haven't already. I think as I'm recording this, we've had about 250 votes, which isn't too bad, but it's looking like that will be an interesting thing. Probably get that started later tonight, and hopefully have the first part of that out sometime tomorrow. But yeah, just a little bit of a shameless plug here, to be fair, but honestly, it just needs to be said that this race, again, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Verstappen did end up second, but honestly, there was no contest apart from him. And it was a 1.9, and here and forwards, we'll be going with 1.9, but we're keeping difficulty levels to standard. So we'll see how the next few races go, and see where we're actually at come, say, maybe Lusail. Oh yeah, we are once again very close here between our drivers. I almost forgot. We are just 2 points between them. Alonso, third place here, was more than good enough for him to make that happen. And Perez and Verstappen still running third and fourth. Then we have Sainz and Leclerc. Then we have the two Mercs, and of course the Astons kind of fighting. So a little bit of an interesting battle here going on between these two. And looking forward to seeing how that develops. But I'm also, again, waiting anxiously here for a point. Technically, I would argue that that fastest lap should, push AlphaTauri a little bit higher up, but it is fine that it doesn't. Honestly, we can live with that. So we'll be going forwards here, trying to move a little bit further ahead, get our life a little bit simpler, if you will. Now we do have a couple of issues. Again, the ERS. We didn't actually replace it this race, but we're probably going to be replacing it next race for sure. Next race is Monza, so it is not too difficult to overtake there. We have a pretty decent car in terms of just DRS overtakes, so we'll try and take advantage of that. And we also have Singapore coming up, so we might have a look at the change of Singapore, which basically was that they've kind of fixed some of the slowing down on the new straight, so we'll see how that actually works out. Now we have suspension fails for both cars and the front wing, which is pretty simple. We'll just manufacture new ones, and that should be pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and just do that. It shouldn't be an issue. We'll just replace, manufacture two new ones. And again, this build is basically, we are running a minimum durability, but I'm not really feeling like we have any manufacturing stress. But that is also very, very much helped by the fact that we don't have drivers that crash a lot. So keep that in mind as well. Front wing complete, that is, you know, pretty quick, so that shouldn't be a surprise. We'll jump into Italy here, and as I said, we'll probably take penalties for both drivers, I would think, to change out their ERS systems, and maybe we'll just go all in, but we'll see. So we have a bit of a decision to make here, and the main decision here that is kind of problematic is the fact that well, we have the new ERSs. We bought them for both cars, but Alonso actually has a little bit left in his. So potentially we could split the penalties between 2 tracks, which probably would help us out a little bit here. Bottas does not have that benefit though. He's down to 30%. But I honestly think this is probably, judging by the, you know, the next track, which is Singapore, this is probably our best bet on getting these penalties out of the way. And I was considering just doing a full-on banger here, but honestly, we're going to gamble on these engines that we have left, kind of making it all the way for both cars. We don't really have any other choice. We are currently at Monza. We do have a few more tracks after this, namely, I think it's 8 races. So they should survive that long. Usually a race takes 5, 6, 7 percentage points off. So should just about be safe, I think. So with that, we'll just jump into qualifying and we'll see where we actually start up for the race itself. So as you can see, we did get hit with the grid penalties here for both cars. We're starting 10th and 11th. We actually qualified 3rd and 4th. So this benefits us. Perez, who actually qualified ahead of us, also had a penalty, so he gets moved probably further behind than we are. And that makes things kind of lively here. So we'll see how this Monza race goes, but honestly, unless we have something big happening, we're probably just going to go through it really, really quick. So this is one of the new things they've added, investigation, when you have a very slight incident. So basically in this case, we had a little bit of wheel banging between Rick here and Perez, and that does happen. But in this case, it kind of just solved itself. And as you can see, investigation, no penalty given. There's a penalty for Russell here, but that was a different wheel bang, just again, a very light situation. But as you can see here, so far this race has gone fairly well. We made it our way up to 3rd and 5th here right now. Albon is going to be pitting fairly soon. Leclerc and Verstappen are kind of on the same setup that we are. They will definitely be running their tyres till the end of the race. Well, we are planning to do another stop for softs. And honestly, it shouldn't be, it should be very effective. And at the very least, they will be fighting for podiums. And as you can see, we do have a fairly sizable lead to cars further behind. Well, not super sizable, don't get me wrong, but still a fairly decent one. So honestly, looking pretty good so far. So we've had an incident between Verstappen and Alonso, and I'm looking forward to seeing who actually gets the penalty there. But it might actually be our driver here, because he turned in probably a little bit too aggressively there. And also because we ended up off track, he ended up waiting, and as you can see, has lost that up to Verstappen big time. Now, Bottas has actually pitted. He's now 20 seconds behind the leader. We have about 11 laps to make that up. It's going to be difficult, but we do have an investigation now for said incident. No penalties given, so no one got blamed for it, which honestly kind of sucks, because it did cost us a lot there, but honestly, it's kind of 50-50 was to blame there anyways. We have 10 laps to go here. Let's see if we can make up something and hunt down Leclerc and the 2 Red Bulls. So Bottas managed to make up the deficit, so to speak. He did catch up and win, which puts him in charge now for the championship. Unfortunately for Alonso, he only made it up to 6th place here. Couldn't really get into attacking range of Hamilton, but honestly isn't that far off either, particularly considering the incident. It did cost him way more than it cost Verstappen, and honestly, he was probably safe to just go on track there, so a bit unfortunate. In theory here, we probably should have been ahead of Verstappen, but, you know, things happen. And we have both Williams here in the point, which is pretty interesting. Now, Driver Championship then, as I said, Bottas now has a pretty significant lead of 16 points, but honestly, shouldn't be too much of a problem. We also now have Mercedes massively going ahead of Aston, so might be that fight is unfortunately kind of already over. But again, a little bit of an eventful race here with a few incidents, most of them getting no penalties given, but there wasn't anything that caused a virtual safety car or safety car, so again, mostly minor incidents. We did lose money this race weekend because of the fact that we bought a, you know, a double set of ERSs. That is just how things are. Bunch of failed parts again, 3 pieces on car 1, 3 pieces on car 2, one of them was destroyed though from the crash. And honestly, it doesn't look like we lost much, if any, durability on the parts. So yeah, that is definitely acceptable. We're going to replace these. We're going to make new ones like we usually do. And then we'll just head into Singapore. And we'll see if we get something interesting happening before that. As you can see, we're still manufacturing some of the pieces that we are missing. So that is going to make things a little bit more annoying. But honestly, it should still be pretty much A-okay here. Gonna have to make a couple of side pods, so in instances like this, we could end up falling behind, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. We're also going to have a change of month here fairly soon, as some research done on the front wing in this case, and we're probably going to need one more front wing research, I would think. I think we have one done already, so the second one, we should be about 2, 3, 4% maybe. So we'll just put one more research in, and that should be, hopefully, the final front wing research we're going to need this season. I would hope and think. Because the main goal that we're going to try and do research-wise is just, you know, cover off that 5% that the cars are going to be losing going into next year. Now, the underfloor in low stock, the suspension low stock, but I believe we have most of our things kind of filled up here. We didn't, so let's get that underfloor made as well. And that should have caught us up to right now, and that is kind of what I'm hoping for. Now, another thing that the patch changed was actually 1.9, that is, just want to mention this quickly, is that the AI will now fit parts whenever they have them available. So this is now very accurate. You don't need to worry about checking your car analysis here in terms of performance. You can check it any time. And provided they have car parts in stock, this will be reliable in comparison to that. And let's just have a look at how we're looking against Red Bull. They have us beat on the low speed. We have them slightly beat on the other two stats here. They do have very high dead air tolerance. They do have better cooling. So in this case, Red Bull is probably the better car. So we're doing fairly well, I dare say. Development update here. We have a point of smoothness for Bottas. We have just 2 points here for Porsche. But that is still a fairly acceptable scenario. Now, in terms of the pit crew here, I am a tad worried because, as you can see, we have Very. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix this. Again, I don't think it's reliable in the sense that I don't think this is the levels of tiness that is, you know, factual, if you will. But it is what we are shown, so we'll just deal with that, and that should be a-okay. That'll leave them attired. We are probably still fine. We're putting in a couple more pit-stop drills here. Shouldn't be anything too major. And I think that is close to the limit, as you can see. We can put in one more. And this will be what we do this month. Just 1 week of really hard work, and that'll be honestly all that we do. Get that risk a little bit further down. Suspension has been completed, which means that we probably should start doing another suspension, I believe. Yeah, we need one more, so that is fine. Now, we should, for the most part, be caught up on parts now, I do believe. We also have an ATR period starting. We'll have to check the boardroom for what we want to invest that ATR period into in terms of research. But for now, we'll just leave things as they are. We have a wind tunnel concern here. Basically, we're going to have to pause all kind of design projects. We don't have any design projects, so sure, we'll approve the investigation. Go ahead and have a look at it. It's better to just check it out if you can. Because, well, there's nothing worse than losing time later on because you didn't bother to take the smaller punishment, in this case just 8 days. Of course, if the report comes back, there's no errors, you kind of do waste time anyways. But if you have the opportunity, just go ahead and do it. It's a very minor penalty, and honestly, you'll get it once or twice a year for the most part. Now, with that said, we'll jump straight into Singapore and see how we perform here. Singapore has just begun. We immediately have a red flag, which is not great for us because we kind of started our strategies here on going long. And it looks like Alonso is out, and part of the red
Imagine their
flag.
confidence will have taken a knock,
Yikes, that's a bit unfortunate.
and not much that the team can do about that one.
So, shouldn't be too much damage, hopefully. But it did look like Alonso was the only one that kind of got yeeted out there. So this is the strategy we want to try for Bottas. We had Alonso and actually starting on the hard. So what I think we're going to do is we're just going to put Bottas on the hard right now. And we'll do a strategy that can, you know, somewhat make something out of this. But this is also great for Bottas's chances of a championship. But it is very unfortunate for Alonso. And we'll have to take a look after the race and just exactly how much damage he suffered. We have our second incident here with a virtual safety car. We're not going to take advantage of this, most likely. We don't have enough really high damage to do that, so to speak. And honestly, you'll just save a few seconds. But yeah, that is Norris definitely out. A twist and crash. But we could try and consider some of this, what we were currently considering. I don't think we can't really do anything that will fill in the gap here in any sensible manner. And in terms of what we save, it's just 4 seconds. So let's be honest here, there's no real need for us to pit, and we will not be doing that. We now have a safety car, so been a pretty eventful race here. This time it's Russell, and I would assume he locks up into 2 cars. Oh, never mind. That might have, rather than a safety car, been a red flag there. So Russell wasn't actually the one that caused problems here. It was Tsunoda. Tsunoda locks up, or, you know, just loses, rather than locking up, he lost control over the car. And I really should have pitted Bottas here. So, yeah, a little bit of a rookie mistake there from me. But honestly, I think it's going to end behind the safety car, so it shouldn't really matter. Tsunoda even picks up a penalty there for crashing and then getting run into, but nothing too major. We also have Norris out here, but again, happened earlier, not really a big deal. And honestly here, as I said, this is not going to end under the safety car, giving Bottas the win, and a huge chance of getting the championship. Kind of getting decided here mostly on luck. Now, it does say we are going to have, you know, a restart here. But let's face it, Bottas is just going to run across the line. And that is it. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. We'll take that. And as I said here, we didn't get fastest lap, unfortunately. But that is just what it is. And with this result now, Bottas has 41 points. Advantage with just a few races left this season. So unfortunate for Alonso here, but potentially the championship here now could have been decided purely on the, you know, the luck here, basically, which is a little bit unfortunate. It was a good fight. Now, of course, Alonso can make it back if Bottas has some incidents of his own, but yeah, last couple of races have kind of been ruined for him. Last race at Monza got ruined. The current race that we played ruined as well. And we're going to vote for this proposed change because it gives more money to the smaller teams. We like that. We like more balance. So we'll try and get this financial change through. Now, in terms of car park inspection here, we have lost basically the entire car for Alonso. The engine was about 5% higher than Bottas. It's now a couple percent lower. That is bad. The ERS damage is probably worse because this will most likely mean we're going to need another ERS over the course of the season. And the gearbox is just straight up gone. So, yeah, not the greatest in terms of crashes here. Probably fairly expensive. But honestly, it could have been so much worse. So we'll just kind of have to take that, I think. Now, I do want to check the board here before we do any more research. And we want to see just where we're at. So the chassis is done. The front wing is basically caught up here. I didn't actually need to do another research. That's on me. Rear wing here has been caught up. The side pods, no work so far. The underfloor needs a little bit more work. Suspension has been caught up. So what we're going to do here is actually put the CFD... Sorry, stop. That was not the button I wanted to click. Well, it doesn't really matter. We won't have time to fix things before Japan anyways. what I want to do here in terms of research is probably just going to do the side pods once we get an opportunity to do that. We could also do rear wing again, put safety time into it. But side pods are really what we are mainly missing. But honestly, making this car quicker on one of the weaknesses that I've given it for next year is probably good. Rear wing is basically caught up anyways. So let's go ahead here, boost the rear wing a little bit. And we're going to do 3 things for this rear wing. We're going to go drag reduction, we're going to go DRS delta, and we're going to go airflow sensitivity. So this is going to give a pretty sizable boost to top speed and DRS effectiveness. We could even boost that a little bit more. But honestly, getting a few percentage points here into dirty air tolerance for next year is probably going to be better because it'll make it easier for this car to follow other cars. DRS effectiveness is going to be great. The top speed is going to be great. So we're going to put safety time into this one because I'm pretty sure, seeing that what we had on the board, that we're going to hit 5% for everything. So we're going to kind of min-max this car just a little bit to make it a little bit harder for us next season. So let's go ahead and do just that. Now, as you see, that we have 39 million left of the cost cap, so we actually still have a sizable amount of money. But with the damage that we've just suffered, that could very well change. And we'll have to see exactly how we are at in terms of, you know, car parts. But it looks like for now we are still fine. The main worry here would be the suspension. But we're actually caught up on kind of everything. I'm just going to quickly go through warehouse here and make sure that we are manufacturing or, you know, getting caught up back on parts, because if we have another crash like this, we might actually be in a little bit of trouble. This is probably from me jinxing it earlier, saying that we, although running minimum lifespan parts, haven't had any problems with supply. We're kind of getting close to it. So currently we're having a little bit of a look at Alonso's gearboxes, and as you can see, he only has one, you know, fresh one left. So we're probably going to have to take a gearbox penalty from him at one point. We'll have to see what we do with the ERS to see. We might just employ this ERS during this race. But as you can see, this one is dead. So this is basically a practice ERS anyways. So he does have a little bit of problems there, but honestly, we'll just have to try and deal with them as best as we can. So Alonso's misfortunes to kind of continue here, as you can see. Sorry about the noise there. Alonso's misfortune has continued. He picked up a penalty during practice. We simmed through it, but he has taken a 3-place grid penalty due to practice shenanigans. Qualifying third, he's now 6th, and this is going to be a wet Japan. So yeah, that's not a good, you know, look. Let's put it that way. It does throw a giant wrench into any plan here. It's going to be inters for basically the entire race after just 6 or so laps. So we're going to be starting both cars on soft compounds, and we are of course going to be pushing them into oblivion. And for Bottas, it's just basically try and get as much of a gap to the rest of the field as you can. For Alonso, it's getting those 4 technically, overtakes done as quickly as possible so that he has a chance towards the end of this race. Let's see how this goes, if we can actually pull something off. So we now have a virtual safety car which stops Alonso's charge, but also gives him some free positions. As you can see, that is Alonso. And here we have Sainz and I believe Perez kind of taking each other out. That should be both cars done for. Honestly, only Sainz is out. Perez is still okay for a second here. That is interesting. He should have some damage though. Rear wing looks fine, so he might still be in this. And as you see, it has started raining, but it's still going to take a while to kind of get up there. We'll have to see what we actually do here in terms of pitting, but as you can see, AI has elected to pit right now. So we're going to have to pray that this safety car lasts for virtual safety car, that is, that it lasts for us to get into the pits here, because now we are getting onto real inters and we don't have any choice here but just to dive in. Luckily, there aren't too many cars that were going into these pit stops, so as long as the VSC lasts long enough for us to get into the pits and get out, we're going to be very, very happy here, I think. And Bottas is getting in at least. Same here for Alonso. Hamilton. I believe Verstappen is the first car on actual inter tires. And the safety car is now ending. So that is going to be a bit worrisome. But you can see Verstappen back there. Bottas does definitely benefit from this. Also, Alonso, he should be getting out. Maybe, nah, Verstappen is going to get him just about there. And that is a tad concerning, but it should still be alright here. We're going to try and push. I'm going to try and get Alonso back up into a good position. But honestly, a good start to the race here for us, particularly for Bottas here. Got away cleanly. We have another virtual safety car here. And I'm wondering if we want to take advantage of this one to pit again. Particularly for Bottas here, who is 15 seconds behind third place. Now, in terms of the time considerations here, 17 seconds stopped under the virtual safety car. So potentially here, he could actually get out ahead of both Verstappen and Hamilton. And the way that this race is going to go is pretty straightforward into a needed at least one more stop, maybe even two. So for Bottas here, we're going to take the gamble. And as you see, it's estimated to come out 6th. So yeah, that's a little bit hopefully wrong. But we're going to get him in under this virtual safety car. And we've actually had Ocon here crash out on his own. So very interesting here. Okay, that looks like it kind of just got slingshotted, so definitely lost the rear. But as said, we're going to be pitting Bottas. We're probably going to keep Alonso out. But I'm curious to see that if any of the AIs opt to, you know, kind of respond to this.
Virtual safety car.
And as you can see, Bottas actually comes out ahead of the rest of the pack. So that's probably a decent pit stop for him. It will allow him to go a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more attack. The problem with running attack though is that it's actually going to overheat the tires. So it might be a little bit of a throwaway here, but it allows us to, say, pit Bottas very, very late if we see the need. And we still kind of retain track position. If Bottas catches up to Alonso, we're just going to tell him to step out of the way. Here the interests begin. We have our first pit stop here on another team. Verstappen is pitting off his tires. And I think that is kind of the key we need here for Alonso to pit off his too. Now, we are going to have to try and make these the second stint here for Bottas, and no, sorry, for Alonso, last till the end. And that is going to be a little bit more difficult, but definitely doable. And as you can see right now, we come out 5th. And we did beat Verstappen out, which is the important one. As long as we're ahead of Verstappen, we are going to be ahead of the rest of the pack here too here when they pit. And as you can see, this should just barely bring us towards the end, so this should actually be perfectly fine. The other concern now is actually going to be for Bottas, but Bottas is currently looking alright. We can put him on full attack for a couple laps, and we'll just pit him in, say, 2 or 3 laps here. And that should be more than good enough that he will be perfectly safe. The race is over, and as you can see here, it worked out to our advantage. Bottas did the tree stopper, worked out well for him. Alonso 20 seconds behind, 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen. So yeah, championship decided here potentially. We'll have to see though. We still have 6 races left, but Bottas now has a fairly huge advantage. Verstappen ends up 3rd. Then we have the 2 Mercs, Leclerc, Show, and our surprise hero here, Hülkenberg, scoring a point for Haas. Now that does mean that most likely we are going to be playing as, well, AlphaTauri next year. So unfortunately, they were unable to score a point. In fact, Hülkenberg did it for Haas instead, which unfortunately means that for this game, we're probably aren't going to be able to use Hülkenberg at Haas. He'll probably going to end up retiring, potentially before we even get the opportunity. But that is just how life is sometimes. Now, almost 50-point difference there. 6 races to go. Alonso going to have his work cut out for him. If he does like this, wins all 6 races, would say Bottas in 2nd, he's actually going to be very, very sad because that leaves him at 48 points, provided he also gets fastest lap. Now, we do have some sprints in there as well. Lusail, Brazil. Is Coda a sprint? Coda's a sprint too. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see if potentially here Alonso still has a chance if he wins the rest. But the last few races here, he has definitely not been having a good time. Now, we also did have a bit of pit stop error here. He's been having a few of them, but there's nothing really can do about that. And I think this is where we're going to be ending today's video. I do need to go and make dinner, and I have some other stuff that needs doing. But we'll have a quick look here at the mailbox. So start point research is complete. I'll have to try and remember to start a new one once we get back here. We have a couple of parts failed, but front wing is super quick to fix. Suspension isn't too bad. We have 11 days for the Qatari Grand Prix. Unfortunately, the financial change here did get voted down, and the internal data concern here actually did discover false. We could have lost more time down the line, so better just get it sorted immediately. Now, with that said, we are going to end this episode here. We now have 6 races to go. We're going to be covering all of them in the next episode, as well as the season end. Championship is in our hands. We still don't know 100% certainly who's going to win it. But Bottas now has a very huge advantage, and Alonso has been fairly unlucky. So, if you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it helps me out a ton. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you around next time. Bye-bye.